All right, well, we are continuing on with our series called Love God and Love Others. And today we are wrapping up the Love God portion of this series. And so our title today is Fugazi God, and I'll explain that in a second if you know what Fugazi is. But let's do this. We're going to go all the way back. If you have your Bibles, turn to Exodus chapter 20. We're going to go all the way back. Exodus is the second book in the Bible. You have Genesis and you have Exodus. And we're going to look at chapter 20, which is where it's a famous section in the Bible that we call the Ten Commandments. Before this, God had not given his law to his people, and so he establishes this rule here with Moses. And so we're going to look at the second commandment, Exodus 20, verses 4 and 5. God says this: "You must not make for yourself an idol of any kind, or an image of anything in the heavens or on earth or in the sea. You must not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God who will not tolerate your affection for any other gods." So to summarize this, he's saying, do not idolize anything, but worship God only. Now the question we have to ask ourselves is, what exactly is an idol? If we think it's a little figurine that you kneel before and you chant and you bring offerings to, I think if it was only that, I think most of us would be in the clear. All right, I've been to some of your houses. I've never seen little idols. Some of you might have been in my office and you might think that is idols, and it's not. Those are just bobbleheads, and I don't worship them. They just sit on my desk or behind my desk. So that is not idols. So I'm in the clear. Maybe you've seen these. This is a statue of Buddha in someone's house. Here's a statue of Ganesh, Hindu god. Here's a statue of Joe Boo from Major League. Joe Boo gave Pedro Serrano hits when he prayed to him and gave him offerings. So if you're going, this is idols, Matt, I'm in the clear. I don't have any of these, and I don't even like the Dodgers. All right, then you might think that you're in the clear. But an idol is anything that takes the place of God in your life. Anything that takes our focus off of God and puts it on something else. Whatever is the most important thing in your life, if it's not God, it's an idol. Anything that is not first in my life, and if it's not God, it's an idol. Even something that's good. Now we look at those and we go, okay, well those are bad, those are false gods. But the things that are important in my life, they're good things. They're things that God gave me. Our idols today can be driven on the street. They can go through the water. They can fly through the air. And you go, well, I don't have any of those, Matt. I'm not rich. They can be accomplishments. They can be jobs. They can be trophies. They can be the search for fame. Like whatever those things are, they're driving. You go, well, that's just me. I'm just being successful. I'm working hard. They can even be things that we use to identify us in the deepest ways possible. They can be our politics. We can be so entrenched and so on one side or another that this becomes the most important thing in our life. Even our nationalism. And I love our country. I'm wearing red, white, and blue today. If you want to see how cool the stars go on there. But we can't put our country before God. Our families. Maybe we strive so hard to have the perfect family, have a family that everyone looks up to, and sometimes maybe we sacrifice things of God to focus on our family. If we're doing that, then that has become an idol. Maybe it's even religion itself. Because you can do religion and God not be a part of it. You can go through the motions. You can be here. You can take communion. You can say prayers. You can read your Bible. You can practice religion. And the drive that pushes you to be religious is sometimes bigger than the drive to actually drive you into God's arms. And if it is, then religion has become an idol. And so what I'm saying is a lot of us have to, hold on, we're not yet there, not there yet. Anything that takes the place of God, other than God himself, anything that takes place of God is an idol. Anything that replaces God is a false God. It's artificial. It's fake. It's a fugazi. Now, if you're not in the mafia, or you didn't grow up with Italian street talk. I didn't grow up with that either, but I've watched mafia movies. This is a clip from Donnie Brasco. Johnny Depp in this scene is an undercover cop. And he's trying to get in with the mafia. It's based on a true story. He's trying to get in with the mafia, and we're going to see Al Pacino's character come up to him. He finds out he's a jeweler, wants to find out if he's on the up and up. Does he know his stuff? And so he's going to present him a diamond ring and ask what he knows about it. And here's what happens.
You're Don the jeweler. Yeah. That's some beautiful thing.
Why don't you give it to your wife?
Hey, you for real? I'm asking you to meddle a diamond for me here. Now, all I want from my end is 8,000.
What I'm saying to you is you should give it to somebody that don't know any better, because that's a Fugazi. All right?
That's a Fugazi? How do you know it's a Fugazi? You looked at it for 2 seconds.
Well, it's a fake.
Yeah, I know what a Fugazi is.
That's a Fugazi. It's a fake. And Johnny Depp's character, he knew this because he had studied real diamonds long enough that he could spot a fake the minute he saw it. Do you know God well enough that you can spot a fake God the minute you see it? The minute it starts entering your life and starting to take control, and you go, no, wait, this is fake. This is a Fugazi. I got to get away from this. I got to turn back to the real thing. The problem with a Fugazi God, the problem with a fake God, the problem with idols is that they will not satisfy you. It will not fulfill you, and it will ultimately destroy your relationship with the one real God. And so we split this sermon into 2 sections. At the top of your paper there it says, don't idolize anything. This first section is going to have 3 parts. Don't idolize anything. If I get confused and I say part 1, part B, letter 3, whatever, like it just all different points. It's all pointing in the same direction. So don't worry about all that stuff. So the first part is don't idolize anything. The passage that we've been in is in Luke chapter 10. It says this: you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. See, the first one is that idols will always disappoint you. They always promise more than they can deliver. You get this idol, this false god, and it's supposed to give you all this stuff. It's supposed to do all this stuff for you, and it doesn't. Here's what Jeremiah says in chapter 10, verse 14. It says, the whole human race is foolish and has no knowledge. The craftsmen are disgraced by the idols they make, for their carefully shaped works are a fraud. These idols have no breath, no power. See, today, we have advertisements, right? We have advertisements that tell us wear these clothes, drink our soda, smoke our cigarettes, brush our toothpaste, wash with our shampoo, drive our cars, like whatever those things are. And don't they always show like the best things? It's like you will be attractive, everybody will be drawn to you, you will be the life of the party. I mean, just all of these things. You're like, if I only brush with Crest, it will be that great. And then you do that, and and you're still alone, and and then nothing's working for you, and you're going, wait, but I'm driving the right car. It's not. Advertisers always promise more than they actually can deliver. Have you ever ordered something from Amazon, and it wasn't what you expected it to be when it showed up? Oh man, that's happened, and you look on, you're like, what a great deal, and you buy it, and it shows up at the house. Let me show you this. So Ava, we needed a chair for Ava's room. She had our old busted up chair, and it was falling apart, and every time we picked it up, the braces would fall off, and she's like, can I get a nice chair? So for her birthday, we're at a restaurant, and we were going to go to like Walmart or Target, and we're like, man, chairs are expensive. So we looked on Amazon, and we're like, we can get this tomorrow for like $12.99. What a great deal. And so we bought this chair. We're all excited. We told Ava, you're going to get a chair. It shows up in the mail. We're like, oh, here it comes. And we get the box, and we open it up. This tiny little baby chair shows up that will not support a 10-year-old girl, it's just way too small. I mean, like if she had a little tea table, but her desk, she was like, it's okay, it'll work. And she sits on it, and the desk is like coming up to here. And we're like, that's not going to work, honey. It's not going to work. Oh, please, let me keep it. And so if you have a toddler or a young child or a niece or someone you know, you can have this chair after the service. So you can come up and get that chair. They don't always turn out the way that you think. This is when I was really, really little. Video games were in their infancy. Here's the cover for Asteroids. Right in the height of Star Wars when everything's big. And look at this amazing depiction of a space battle and shooting out these the asteroids that are there. And the reality was that. That's what you actually got in the game. And it's just like ding, ding, like these. That's nothing like what the box promises, You go, oh yeah, but Matt, the technology was bad then. Today we have better graphics. They're very lifelike. You get what you were promised in the trailers. Not always. This game, I'm going to show you a clip here. This game was one of the most touted games, I believe it was like 2013, 2014, at E3, which is a video game conference. And they're talking about, it's called No Man's Sky. And it's this exploration of space. And the planets are procedurally generated. They put in algorithms so that they're programmed to just form. And each time it's going to be a unique landscape, unique animals, unique everything. And you're like, oh, the possibilities are endless. So the clip you're going to see is kind of what we are promised, set to the score of Jurassic Park. And then the second part will be what we actually got delivered. So here you go. Oh, well, that's, yeah. Here we go.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
This is really from the game. Now, the music isn't. This is really from the game. These weird abominations that showed up in the game. It was just absolutely horrible. Yeah. That's how bad it was. It was really bad. You started going, and every planet kind of started looking the same. They were all generically unique, I don't know. It was really bad, and the guy who made it, he was ripped apart. Little by little, they've tried to make it a little bit better, but it was not what they promised at the beginning. It was going to be this amazing world. That's what happens. We get these great promises of things that are never fulfilled. Anytime you put a person or product or ideal in the place of God and expect that thing will solve your problems, will satisfy your greatest desires and urges, you're going to be disappointed. Idols will always disappoint you. The second is that idols will dominate you. See, idols can end up controlling your life. 1 Corinthians 12:2 says, before you knew Christ, you were controlled by dead idols who always led you astray. If you have this, if you've looked this up in your own Bible, you can either underline or highlight the two words controlled and led you, or two phrases, controlled and led you astray. This is what happens when we put idols in our life at the place of God. They control and they lead us astray. The thing that you love more than God will begin to control you. We call this addiction. When we use this word, we typically think of vices like drugs or alcohol or pornography. But we can be addicted to any number of things. Things that we like, things that we enjoy. We can be addicted to sports. I love sports. We got to be careful not to be addicted to them. Video games, work, and the Christian favorite stimulant of choice, coffee, right? We love coffee. That's like the one thing we're like, well, God allows coffee. I'm going to have all of it, and we have coffee, and we've got it's like I need 12 cups a day. I can't make it if I don't have my coffee. And you go, yo, bro, you might be addicted. You might need to cut back a little bit. You might need to get some more sleep. If you need that much coffee to get up in the morning, you got to go to bed earlier, all right? I love coffee. I love really good coffee. But I didn't start drinking coffee till I was like 32 years old or something like that. And I was like, I don't want to be like addicted to coffee, right? Like I have to have like 3 carafes every morning. And so, yeah, typically it's like 1 cup a day or 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. You can drink it however you see fit, but you got to watch being addicted. Anything we can be addicted to. 1 Corinthians 6:12, it says, you say, this is Paul talking, he says, you say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. And even though I'm allowed to do anything, I must not be a slave to anything. He's saying just because you're allowed to do it, that's okay, you can do it, but you have to start to evaluate, is it controlling me? Because if it's controlling me, then man, it's better that I get rid of that thing. Being addicted to anything makes us its slave. We become enslaved to it. It controls us. And remember I said the second part of that was that you'd be led astray. When you put something in your life, an idol in your life, and it's controlling you, you start to lose your perspective. Something takes the place of God in your life, and you start your morals and the things that you once valued start to shift in pursuit of that idol. People chasing down a promotion, a specific part in a movie or a play or some kind of idols, or have sacrificed their own families and friends in the process of achieving whatever it was, whatever they're chasing down, right? I mean, don't we know those stories? Sometimes even in the process of doing stupid things like playing Pokemon Go. Maybe you've heard. I mean, there have been quite a few. You can actually, there's a website. You can look up all the Pokemon Go related accidents and deaths that have occurred. And you're going, wait, Matt, that thing's still going on? It is still going on. Look, it's still on my belt. I'm still playing right now as we speak. But I read several stories, and one of them in particular, in 2016, 2 men fell off a cliff trying to collect Pokemon. It was in Encinitas near San Diego in 2016. They had to be rescued because they were chasing Pokemon, not paying attention, looking at their phone, and they fell off the edge in pursuit of this dumb thing, which, it's fun, but it's not worth your life, right? You can be led astray. The things that you thought made sense before, all of a sudden you change them in order to go after this. Idols will dominate your life and control your actions. The third part is that idols will deform and destroy you. They'll change you. They'll change who you are. You see, when God is God and is in control of your life, you also change. You begin to resemble Him. You take on His characteristics. And that is the beautiful part of spiritual adoption. And we've talked about this before. When we adopt someone in this life, I don't know, how do you physically, when we adopt somebody into your family, they become part of your family, they take on your name, their characteristics never change. They never start to look like your family. They don't get your family's ears or nose or eyes. They don't do any of that. But in spiritual adoption, we begin to resemble our Father. As we get to know God better, as we grow closer to Him, we begin to take on His characteristics and His personality, and we begin to look like Him spiritually. But in the same way, when anything else takes the place of God, you begin to resemble the thing that you value the most. Psalm 115:8, it says, "And those who make idols are just like them, as are all who trust in them." You become just like those things. You become just like that idol. Rick Warren said, and I thought this was great, Rick Warren said, "We shape an idol and it ends up shaping us." Now, again, you might not be out there actually you're like, "What you doing there, honey?" "Oh, I'm whittling an idol." You're not doing that. But we've made these idols in our lives. We've put something in the place of God. We have placed it there, and that thing begins to shape and mold us to become more like it. That's the way we're wired. And so famously, the Gospels tell us about Jesus' encounter with a rich young ruler. He wants to know, what's it going to take to follow Jesus? And Jesus sees his heart. He sees that he's rich. He knows that money is the most important thing to him. And he tells him, sell everything you own, and then you can come give it to the poor and come follow me. The Bible says the man walked away sadly because he was rich. Now, it's not really, the point of this story is not about being rich. The point of this story is not about the money. It's about what he had put in his life as God. And so, again, if you're sitting here going, well, man, I'm not rich, so I'm off the hook. Replace rich with whatever is most important in your life. With the strive to have the perfect family. With the goal of being at the top of your job. With the goal of getting my third house. Whatever it is. Well, those are all kind of going down the same rich path. I'm sorry. Whatever it is that you're pursuing, that you put in there, he's saying whatever that is, if there's anything that you will not let go of for me, it is your idol. It is your God. What is it? And so we have to start asking ourselves. You have to ask yourself, I have to ask myself, what is it in my life that I cannot let go of? What is it that I need to let go of that has become so important in my life that I feel like if I lost this, I would be nothing? My hope is, and what we should strive for, is that nothing outside of God can do that. I've said it many times. I don't want this to happen. I can lose my entire family. I can lose everything I own. My heart still needs to be for the Lord. Because if I have him and nothing else, I have everything. That is what we have to get through our minds is, if I have God and I have a sports car, if I have God and an incredible family, if I have God and so many friends, I have nothing more than the person who has God and God alone. That is everything. All this other stuff, it's just on the sides. I remember when I was a teenager, and I was going through my rebellious thing with my parents. And my mom wanted to know what it was that was causing problems, and she just thought it's secular music, okay? And so she was like, I want you to stop listening to secular music. And I was like, oh man, this is lame. I was so upset. And so we ended up having, at the time, our associate pastor, Glenn Myers. He came to the house, and he talked to me and to my parents, and like trying to get to the root of what's causing these rifts and these fightings and all that stuff. And she's telling him, I think that we need to get rid of this. I think it's allowing Satan to come in, and it's causing these problems. And whether you agree or disagree with that point of view, here's where it gets to it. Glenn asked me, Matt, if Jesus was sitting here and he asked you, Matt, I want you to give up this music, what would you say? And I thought, well, I've got to answer honestly. And I said, I don't know, I'd have to think about it. Oh, Matt, what are you doing? I thought, I got to think, I would be honest. And that's how I felt at that time was, if Jesus said it to me, I would go, let me think about this. And he goes, see now, Matt, I think that's a problem. It's too important to you if you're not willing to give it up. Now, he said, I'm not saying that God is telling you to give it up, but if he did, and you're saying you might not want to give it up, it's too important to you. So there was like this 2-year period where I didn't, and I was like, I refuse to listen to Christian music. That stuff is lame. I didn't want to listen to it. And then finally one day I gave in, and then I became like the biggest advocate. So anyway, that's how God works, right? What is the thing that you have trouble letting go of? What is that thing that you go, I cannot lose this. This is my identity. If it's not God, then it's an idol. If you can't give it up, if you can't let it go, you don't own it. It owns you. So the first part was don't idolize anything. The second half is that we worship only God. Again, we'll go back to the verse we started with, Exodus 20. We're going to read the second half, verse 5. It says, you must not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God who will not tolerate your affection for any other gods. Now, I used to have problems with this verse because I didn't get it. And I'm like, really? God? Jealous? Isn't that kind of petty? You're jealous? And it was perfect that you guys picked out how he loves Donald. I'm hearing the song going, oh, man, this ties in perfectly. God is jealous for us. But we have to re-understand what that means. What does jealousy mean in the context of God? Because God's jealousy does not stem from neediness or vanity or a misunderstanding. He gets it completely. It's us that are not really getting it. See, when other people are jealous, we used to get our dog Buster. Charlie, he doesn't really get jealous. He just sits there and he's happy about it. Buster, we used to get him jealous so easily. Dana and I would hug each other and we would just go, oh, and we would like pet each other and we're like, oh, mommy, and she's like, oh, daddy, and he would just be like, and he would like jump up on us and try to break us apart like, no, all of your love should be for me. And he's like, and I'm thinking, dog, you don't understand the nature of this relationship because it supersedes the relationship we have with you. You think it's all about you, and you are wrong. You're so wrong. He thought that was for him. We see this with little kids. You know, when they get jealous of their little brother or their little sister because they want all the attention. Again, they think, I deserve all of this, and you shouldn't be giving it to any of them. We were worried about that with Jack and Ava because they were really close in age, and I had heard horror stories. I had heard about friends who's, like the older brother or sister's like pushing over the bassinet and asking, can we throw the baby in the trash? And, all that kind of stuff. You're like, man, little 2-year-olds are just horrible little monsters. So we were really worried. Luckily, our kids, they loved each other from the time they were born. So that was really awesome. Here's the problem with all those. The jealousy in those situations is unwarranted. Because they didn't actually understand the nature of the other relationships, and it was more vanity, it was more selfish why jealousy occurred in those situations. Now, let me give you another situation. Dana and I are married. If I started dating someone else, and she gets jealous, and I go, come on, don't be so petty. It's not a big deal. Don't be jealous. The nature of our relationship, the vows that we took when we got married, right here in this spot, the vows that we took that day were a covenant between us and between God. And it gave us exclusive rights to our hearts. She belongs to me and I belong to her, and that is the nature of our relationship. So jealousy, if I'm dating someone else, is completely warranted, as well as a butt kicking, right? And so God has made us, we are part of His creation, made for His glory. The Bible explicitly states that. He deserves our worship, our adoration, our praise. He deserves it because it is in us. It is in our nature to worship. And He deserves our worship and our praise. And so our heart, our soul being shared with something else, He says, I'm jealous for you. It's not because He needs it. It's not like He's sitting there in heaven going, I wish people would love me. It's not like that. It's for your sake. It's for your sake that He says, this is good for you. Putting something else will not fulfill you. You need to put me back into that place. I deserve your worship, and it will be good for you if you do this. If you restore the creator-creature relationship. Romans 1:25, it says they worshiped and served the things God created instead of the Creator Himself, who is worthy of eternal praise. You see, we don't need to look to stars or crystals or astrology, or giant mountains, or sacred trees. We don't need to look to any of those things that God created because we can actually worship the God behind all of this creation. We have direct access to God Himself. The red phone that goes to the president, man, ours goes right to God. We have direct access to Him. Our worship should go to Him. And so there's 3 motives behind idols. Why would people want to make idols in the first place? Why would they want to make statues or forms or things that they can worship? Now again, it's a good chance that none of you are actually making physical idols. But the reasoning behind this still applies to whatever it is we've put in the place of God. So don't hear idols and think statues. think of the reasoning behind this and what those things are that we've maybe placed in God's place. The first one is we want to limit God's location. See, if we can limit God to a statue, if we can limit God to a place, then we keep tabs on him. He's not keeping tabs on us. We can close the door on him, and he can't see what I'm doing. If he lives in some little shrine somewhere, and I go around the corner, well, then he's not watching me. Now, how do we do this? How do we do this today? Well, if we've limited God to this building, if we've limited God to when we pray at the dinner table or right before we go to bed and we go, okay, God is here, he's present, and now the prayer's ended and the door's closed. All right, now I can go back to doing what I really want. God shows up and we suck in our gut and we try to look good and we do all this stuff and we impress him and then he leaves and you're like, okay, I can go back to my normal life. That's how we do that. We limit God's location and we feel like, okay, well then I've got a better grasp, I've got a better handle on this. If I can limit God's location, then I've got him under my control. The second one is that we want to reduce God's power and size. If we can limit God again to a statue or an icon, it's less imposing. It's less threatening. He's more convenient and more easily manageable. Right? God's there. He's smaller. It's not this infinite God that I just can't even comprehend. But if I limit him to this, if he only exists in my grandpa's old sacred Bible that I have, if that is where we've limited God to these little holy sections in our life, we go, okay, that's where God is. Then we feel like, okay, well, God's limited in his power and in his size, and I can manage him better. Genesis 1:27, it says, so God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. We have been made in God's image, but sometimes what we've done is we've reversed this, and we've tried to make God into our image. We go, well, I don't really like that. God, I think that you're more like me. And this, I really want to keep doing this. I think, God, that you're okay with this over here. And we just keep shaping God, and we cut off a little part there, and we're like, okay, well, I don't really know. Let me change this part here. I want him to look more like me. And so what we've done is we've moved it. It used to be that this was the point, and we're way over here, and we've kind of just diverted God over here, and we go, okay, now this is better. It lines up better with my image. You need to become more like me. A.W. Tozer, in his classic book, The Pursuit of God, he writes this, and this is just one of my absolute favorite. It's an amazing book, and this section is just my favorite section of the whole book. It's kind of small writing, but I'll read it to you. Tozer says this, much of our difficulty in seeking Christians stems from our unwillingness to take God as he is and adjust our lives accordingly. We insist upon trying to modify him and bring him nearer to our own image. We can get a right start only by accepting God as he is and learning to love him for what he is. As we go on to know him better, we shall find it a source of unspeakable joy that God is just what he is. Some of the most rapturous moments we know will be those spent in reverent admiration of the Godhead. In those holy moments, the very thought of change in him will be too painful to endure. May we grow so close to God that we go, I'm the one that needs to change, not God changing to me. And in fact, because I'm so close to him, it would actually hurt me to think of trying to change God. Because I so value the characteristics that he has. I so value who he is. That I recognize that change has to take place in me. And the last one is that we want to control God. Why do we make idols? Why do we form these idols? Because we want to limit God's location, we want to reduce his power and size, and we want to control him. You see, when you have an idol, the worshiper has more control than the person being worshiped. I tell you when it's time to worship because I will come and I will worship, and then when I'm done, and then you stay there. We have control if we're worshiping. And a lot of people want a God that they can manipulate, a God that they can control, a God that when I come to you, that's when I need you. You know? But even, this is not in here. Even you go back to the original Godfather movie, and the very first request at the beginning of the movie, and the Godfather says to him, like, wait, you come here and you ask for this on my daughter's wedding day. Where was the friendship before this? If you'd come here as my friend, I would have taken care of this. But instead, you just come looking for vengeance. So how many times, though, do we come to God? We're like, sorry, God, haven't seen you in a couple years, but it is finals time. So I'm back and I'm ready to talk to you. Oh, this person's sick, so now I'm going to come to you. Now, it's still better to go to God than to not to go to God. But what are we doing in the meantime? What are we doing to cultivate this relationship? Are we only trying to manipulate God and go, well, God, you owe me, all right? I went to church last week, so now I'm expecting some results. There's this little boy who wants a new bike. Maybe you've heard this story. So he goes and he asks his mom for a bike, and she says, you know what, maybe if you pray about it, God will give you a bike. So he sits down, he writes a letter to Jesus, and he says, Dear Jesus, if you give me a bike, I won't sin for a year. Now, I don't know how many of you guys have made those kind of promises to God, typically around like playoff time with your team. You start making those. So he walks down the mailbox. Before he gets there, he sees his mother's statue of Mary, and he starts feeling guilty because he knows, I won't be able to avoid sin for a whole year. I don't think I can do that. So defeated, he goes back upstairs. He sits down, he writes Jesus another letter. Dear Jesus, if you give me a bike, I won't sin for 6 months. Then he walks back down to the mailbox. Before he puts it in the house, he sees that statue again. It's like sitting there in the window. And he's like, oh no, he feels guilty again. And so he picks her up instead, and he takes her up to his room. And he stuffs the statue in his toy box, and he starts writing another letter. And he says, Dear Jesus, if you ever want to see your mother again, now, you can look at this and you can go, oh, kids, or whatever. But how many adults, how many of you have ever tried to manipulate God, going, God, you owe me. God, I demand this. I've been going to church for how many years? You owe me this. God, look, I was really good during worship. I wasn't even thinking about anything else. I was actually singing the songs today. Like, whatever it is, whatever ways we have tried to justify or reason to God, to control him, to manipulate him, and make him do what we want. And there's nothing wrong. Obviously, the Bible encourages us, tells us to ask God for these things that you don't have because you don't ask. But it's all about the condition of our heart. In what condition do we come before God and put these requests? Is it really your will be done? Or is it, God, you better do my will or I'm out of here? When we were kids, sometimes my mom would borrow money from us. And we always thought it was weird, like, you're adults. We only get money for birthdays. Like, we get money once a year. But every once in a while, things would get, she's like, she'd be at the store. It's like, I just need $5. And we're like, we give them $5. And she wasn't always real prompt about paying us back. But we learned a tough lesson because we would say things occasionally like, Mom, you owe me $10. And she's like, oh, wait, stop. I don't owe you anything. Your clothes, I bought for you. Your food, I bought for you. The house that you live in, I bought for you. And it goes on and on and on, right? I don't owe you anything. I have lent you money and I will repay it when I have it, but I will not, I don't owe you anything. And we're like, oh, but you still owe me. In my heart, I just want to say it quietly. It's like, you owe me, But I learned that from them. I learned that from her. She doesn't owe me anything. She will pay me back. She's good with her word. Sometimes she needed reminding, but again, if I had gone with a different attitude, I might have had a different result, But I learned that, and I've pulled that out on my kids. So that's been, that's a good one. You're like, man, I sounded just like my mom when I said that. We don't demand anything from God. We don't manipulate God. He is never indebted to us. We worship him and we trust that he knows best for us. And so if you're in a situation, you're going, it seems unfair. That's okay. It can seem unfair. And you know what? It might even be unfair. It depends on how you define fairness, right? I got a ticket the other day, and sometimes, people are like, oh, are you going to go fight? It's like, no. You know what? There have been 1,000 other times I didn't get tickets. So I deserve this one, and I deserved other ones. I'm just going to take my punishment like a man. I'm just going to pay the fine. I have not gotten a ticket in like a decade, so you can still trust me. God does not owe us anything. And he knows what's best for us. And if we can put our trust in him, he will get us through whatever it is that we're facing. He will get us through it, and in the end, we will be better because of it. It is always through our hardest times that we learn the best lessons. It is always the person who has overcome adversity who inspires us, not the person who never faces one. And so we have to be willing to turn those things over to God and say, God, I've been trying to control you. I've been trying to limit your size. I've been trying to limit your location because I feel like if I'm in control, life's better. And he's going, no. My son, my daughter, trust me. Because I want what's best for you, and my plan is so much better than yours. Psalm 34, verse 8 reminds us, taste and see that the Lord is good. Try him out. Try him out. Find out how good God is. And when you find out how good he is, then you can always go back to that. When things aren't going your way, you go, but I know God is good. He has been good to me for so long. I'm going to continue to trust him. And he proved that. He proved that by sending his son to die on the cross for us. If you needed any other proof that God loves you and cares for you, it's that your sins were bought and paid for through Jesus Christ. And we have forgiveness and the promise of eternity with him. That is, there's nothing else. If we can't be convinced with that, there might be nothing that can convince us. And so today we celebrate communion as we do every month. We celebrate communion together. It all culminates. This love God culminates with what took place at the cross and what this means for our future.